Revenge, it's a powerful emotion, a dark force that can cloud judgment and destroy lives. When a person feels betrayed, hurt, or rejected, they often seek a way to make others feel the same pain. But what happens when this desire for vengeance goes too far? When one person's actions, fueled by anger, ripple out and affect the lives of countless others? Today's story is one that is not only shocking, but deeply tragic. It's the story of a teenager named Sarah, who, after experiencing betrayal and heartbreak, made a series of choices that spiraled out of control. In an act of revenge, she deliberately infected over 50 men with HIV, leaving behind a trail of devastation that no one could have ever anticipated. This is a story about anger, regret, and the consequences of actions that go beyond what anyone could ever imagine. Stick with us as we dive deep into Sarah's life, exploring her pain, her decisions, and the irreversible consequences of her vengeful choices. Sarah was an ordinary teenager, or at least, that's how it appeared to the outside world. She lived in a quiet suburban town, where people were polite and life moved at a predictable pace. Her family, while not wealthy, was stable. She had good grades, a few close friends, and a quiet, introspective personality. But on the inside, Sarah's world was crumbling. At school, she was an outsider, someone who didn't fit in with the popular crowd. She was taller than most of the girls, with sharp features that others mocked. Sarah's awkwardness didn't help either. She was quiet, reserved, and didn't have the confidence to speak up for herself. This made her a target for bullies. The bullying began with small things, whispers in the hallway, taunts in the classroom. But as Sarah got older, the bullying grew more malicious. Her classmates would make cruel comments about her appearance, calling her names, making fun of her clothes and her family. Sarah kept to herself, retreating to the safety of her books and her imagination. But no matter how much she tried to ignore it, the pain of feeling excluded and different gnawed at her every day. But the real betrayal came from someone she never expected, Chris. Chris was Sarah's best friend. He was her confidant, the person she could always turn to. They shared everything, secrets, laughter, their dreams for the future. But one day, Sarah discovered the unthinkable. Chris had been sharing her private moments with others, the things she had told him in confidence. Her secrets, her vulnerabilities, the things that made her feel small, had become ammunition for the very people who had tormented her. Sarah walking down the hallway, overhearing Chris and a group of popular kids laughing, holding up her private messages. It was a betrayal like no other. The one person she had trusted had not only let her down, but he had also handed over her deepest insecurities to the people who were already causing her pain. Sarah felt exposed, humiliated, and utterly alone. When she confronted Chris, the cruel indifference in his response shattered her. Chris didn't apologize. He didn't even seem to care. He laughed it off, dismissing her hurt as if it was nothing. This was the moment Sarah's world began to fall apart. She had always felt like an outsider, but now she realized that the people she trusted, Chris, her peers, had turned against her. In that moment, Sarah made a vow: if they were going to treat her like this, then she would make them pay. She wouldn't just let it slide anymore. But she didn't know how. How could she get back at those who had tormented her? How could she make them feel the hurt, the betrayal, the anger that was building inside her? For weeks, Sarah thought about it. She couldn't stop thinking about revenge, about the need to make others feel her pain. But she didn't yet know what her path would be. She didn't know that her quest for vengeance would soon spiral into something much darker than she could have ever imagined. After the betrayal by Chris, Sarah's mind became consumed with anger. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had to make everyone who had hurt her feel what she felt. But what form would her revenge take? The more she thought about it, the more she realized she didn't just want to get back at Chris or a few classmates, she wanted to make a statement that would echo far beyond the walls of her school. She began researching dark corners of the internet, looking for answers. What could she do to make people feel her anger? How could she make them understand the depth of her pain? It was during one of these late-night internet searches that Sarah stumbled upon something that both terrified and fascinated her: HIV. Sarah didn't know much about HIV. She had heard about it, seen news stories about the virus, but it had always seemed distant, like something that happened to other people. But as she read, she learned that HIV could be spread through unprotected sex, through sharing needles, and through contact with bodily fluids. The more she read, the more the idea began to take root in her mind. In that moment, Sarah felt a strange, almost electrifying sense of power. The virus was something that could be controlled, something she could use to make her tormentors understand how much they had hurt her. She wasn't a helpless victim anymore. Now, she could control who felt pain and who didn't. And in Sarah's mind, the thought of infecting those who had wronged her felt justified. But what Sarah didn't anticipate was the impact HIV would have on her own life. You see, Sarah had already been diagnosed with HIV, almost a year earlier. She had contracted the virus after a brief, reckless affair with an older man, someone she had trusted and thought cared for her. The relationship had been short-lived and filled with confusion, and it ended abruptly when Sarah found out that her partner had been unfaithful. The diagnosis was a shock to her, and it devastated her. She had felt like her world had crumbled. Sarah kept her diagnosis a secret, only a few close friends and a doctor knew. The shame she felt was overwhelming. She had no one to talk to about it, and she felt more isolated than ever. But instead of seeking help, instead of addressing the emotional turmoil she felt, Sarah began to let the anger fester. Now, with her knowledge of HIV, Sarah saw it as a tool, something she could use to inflict pain on others, something she could wield as a weapon of vengeance. In her mind, if she had to live with this virus, so should they. Sarah's decision to act upon her anger was rooted not just in a desire for revenge, but also in her own sense of pain and helplessness. She had been hurt. She had been betrayed. Now, she wanted to make sure no one else would get away with hurting her, or anyone else, for that matter. But what Sarah didn't realize was that the road she was about to embark on would lead to devastating consequences, not just for those she targeted, but for herself as well. The evening unfolded like Sarah had imagined it would. After the bar, the man invited her back to his apartment, where he thought they would share a night together. She agreed, playing along, masking the cold determination beneath her seemingly innocent demeanor. As the evening progressed, Sarah's heart raced, but it wasn't from excitement, it was from the overwhelming sensation of control she felt. The power to hurt, to make someone else suffer, was all within her grasp. When they were alone, Sarah made her move. She had come prepared. Her actions, though calculated, were quick and precise. As they engaged in what was supposed to be an intimate encounter, Sarah used the opportunity to infect him with the virus. She knew the risks, both for him and for herself, but in that moment, those risks didn't matter. All she could think about was how satisfying it would be to know that she had made him feel the way she felt, abandoned, betrayed, and powerless. As the man later fell asleep, Sarah left his apartment without a word. It was over. One down, countless others to go. She felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, power, and, for the first time in a long while, a sense of control. But that feeling didn't last long. The further Sarah sank into this vengeful path, the more she realized she wasn't just affecting her targets, she was also affecting herself. In prison, Sarah began to reflect on her actions. The anger that had once consumed her now felt like a distant memory. She had seen the pain she had caused, had heard the stories of the men whose lives were forever changed because of her. And it was here, in the silence of her prison cell, that Sarah began to understand the true cost of revenge. Revenge, as it turned out, was a double-edged sword. It not only destroyed those around her but also obliterated the person she once was. Sarah, the shy teenager who had once dreamed of a better life, was gone. In her place stood someone who had torn apart her own humanity in the pursuit of vengeance. Sarah's story is a cautionary tale, one that serves as a reminder of the destructive power of anger and the far-reaching consequences of seeking revenge. It is a story of a young woman who, hurt by betrayal, allowed her pain to spiral into something darker, until it consumed not only those around her but herself as well. Revenge may seem like a way to right the wrongs done to us, but as Sarah's life shows, it often leaves us with nothing but emptiness and regret. The scars left behind by revenge are far deeper than we can ever imagine, and they don't just affect the victim, they affect everyone involved. In the end, the only way to break free from the cycle of hurt and vengeance is to heal, to forgive, and to let go of the anger that holds us captive. Sarah's journey ended in tragedy, but perhaps, in sharing her story, we can begin to understand the true cost of revenge. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime story. Stay tuned for our next episode.